All right, it is 7 p.m. It is February 14th, and we are at the appointed hour. I'm going to read the preamble, and we will get going here. Of course, it's the February 14th, 2023 Wayland Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. One may watch or participate remotely with a meeting link that can be found at, and there's a HTTP website address that I won't read. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be in person by a remote means in accordance with applicable law. This meeting may be recorded, which will be made available to the public on Waycam as soon as practical, after the meeting as is practical. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so in person attendance if allowed, or by accessing the meeting remotely as noted above. We request public comment be limited to 2 minutes per person. Everyone in attendance should be aware that face masks are now optional for town buildings according to the new face covering guidance dated February 24th, 2022. And again, there is a website link provided below, which I will not. And it being 7 p.m. here at the town building, we have Doug Levine and myself, Joshua Warnick, in attendance. And give me 1 second while I toggle over to Zoom. Looks like we have Adam Hirsch, Tom White, Aida, Janice, Mr. Fitzpatrick, Kevin, and all attending via remote means. Mr. Brumback has informed me that he will not be participating tonight. He was unable to make it, and I have not heard from Sean, and maybe he'll show up in a couple of minutes, but we do have more than a quorum here. So I guess we'll see the first order of business, public comment. There is nobody here except for town staff meeting. Good to see you, and Doug and I. So is there anybody that wants to be heard from the public virtually? And with no IT support here, how do we do that?
Does he supply you with the host?
I'm not overly technical.
Click over to attendees.
Click to attendees.
See at the top under participants.
I don't have that on my screen.
You're not mirroring what's on there.
I'm not mirroring what's on there. Oh, there's participants.
Can you click that?
Attendees does not appear. I can see.
That's what, and you can just see the list of panelists right now. So if you click over to attendees, you can see if anybody's raising hand.
Recording in progress.
From the attendees, it doesn't look like there's anybody in online except for the people that are currently here.
That's right.
Except for James, he just popped in.
So on mine, I see two that say Wayland Zoom meeting, host and then co-host. And it says recording after them. That's at the top of the participant list. Do you see those?
That's under the panelists, Aida. We would need to look over at attendees because they wouldn't be listed as
Okay.
panelists. Other comment.
Yeah, and I can get access to attendees. There's just 3 attendees.
Yeah, so all you have to do is that number.
Oh, okay.
Wonderful. Hey, computer or not, but somebody's computer is giving a little bit of feedback there. If you could just mute. Well, hearing no public comment, I think that gives us the ability to keep on moving here. And I believe we have the minutes of October 11th, 2022 and November 9th, 2022. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those meeting minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
It's okay. Wonderful. Any comments, any issues, any discussion?
Move to accept the minutes as is.
All right. We have
I'll second that.
Mr. Levine, thank you for seconding that. We'll take this by roll call vote here. Just give me 1 second so I get back to my screen. Oh, this is brutal. I'm really struggling tonight with my. All right, so we'll take this by roll call vote. Mr. Levine,
Yes.
Mr. White,
Yes.
Ms. Janice,
Yes. Aye.
Mr. Hirsch,
Aye.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
It looked like he dropped off for a second. Oh, he's coming back on now.
Listening to audio. Mr. Fitzpatrick, you there?
I'm back. Sorry, having some technical difficulties here. Can you
We're
guys hear
just-
me?
Yes, we're just
Mhm.
voting on
Yep.
acceptance of the minutes.
October 11th and November 9th, 2022.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. And the chair, Joshua Warning, myself, the ayes have it, passes unanimously. The meeting's minutes are accepted. Do expect that we'll be able to get the other meeting minutes out for the next meeting. I apologize, Manny, did not get to those prior to this meeting. All right, so topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting, if any. I have no topics that weren't reasonably anticipated. It is now 7:07, so we can open up the 7:05 p.m. Hearing, which is the application of Joshua Fox, attorney agent, on behalf of Herb Chambers owners for any necessary approvals, findings, special permits, and/or variances as may be required in order to renovate existing structure to create service bays for customer drop-off and additional storage under the town of Wayland zoning bylaws, chapter 198, including but not limited to sections 201, 203, articles 4, 7, 8. In section 198, attachment 1, table of dimensional requirements, the property is located at 533 Boston Post Road, which is in the limited commercial zoning district, case number 23-01. And with that said, who do we have here on behalf of the applicants?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Joshua Fox from the Law Office of Rollins and Fox on behalf of the applicant. Here with me this evening is John Welch. John is the Director of Construction for the Herb Chambers Companies. Dave Newhall from the Crocker Design Group, Project Engineers. Gabe Crocker from Crocker Design Group, Project Engineers. And James Malarkey from Curtis Architectural, Project Architect.
Welcome all.
Thank you, and thank you for spending Valentine's Day with us.
I won't tell you what.
Please tell us a little bit about what you're looking for. I've been through the application here, but I'd like to hear what you're looking for, the relief specifically, and just and the basis for the relief that you're seeking.
Thank you. So we'll give you a little bit of project background and then talk about the relief. So 533 Boston Post Road is located at the westerlymost section of Boston Post Road.
Sorry, I'm on
If
mute.
you're driving west down Boston Post Road and you think you've reached the town of Sudbury going up the hill from the new Oxbow development, you have, and you pass the Sudbury dump, formerly dump, now transfer station, and then start going down the hill and you strangely come back into the town of Wayland, drive by the Ritchie and Clapper site, which is in part in Sudbury and part in Wayland, and then reach this site, 533 Boston Post Road, on your left. It is an automobile dealership selling premium quality automobiles, including Rolls-Royce, Bentley, Alfa Romeo, Maseratis, and Lamborghinis. For some of those premium automobiles, if they sell one or two in a month, such as for Lamborghini and Rolls-Royce, it would be considered a good month. So it's a relatively low volume as far as sales go dealership. The site is 2.95 acres, and the building presently is approximately 25,000 square feet. Over there, it is zoned in the limited commercial district, which is kind of an outlier as far as Wayland goes, and it actually prohibits the sale and service of automobiles. Excuse me. The authorization to sell and service automobiles was granted by your zoning board of appeals back in 1995. So that's what it's operating under presently. It's a relatively unique site on the outskirts of town with a steeply sloping topography. As a matter of fact, when you're driving west and you look out towards the building, you're seeing as much of the roof as you are the front elevation. You can see the entire roof from Route 20, which makes it a bit of a challenging site. As far as the abutters, directly to the east is the Ritchie and Clapper site, which is owned by Joseph Devine, trustee of the CD Realty Trust. We refer to it as Ritchie and Clapper. They sell, I think it's service power equipment such as landscaping equipment. To the west and the south is Herb Chambers 83 Boston Post Road LLC, big supporter of the project, by the way. That's the Jaguar Land Rover dealership. And to the back or the south, it's conservation land under conservation restriction granted to the town of Wayland by and through its conservation commission, I believe. Actually, no, it's to the town of Sudbury and the town of Wayland. Some of it's in Sudbury, some of it's in Wayland, excuse me. So the proposal here, or the proposed use, let me just get back to the neighborhood. So we mentioned the direct abutters, but there are other neighboring uses that are consistent with and compatible with this use, which include an automobile service station, gas station, as well as a car wash, and then the Longfellow, what was once an office park is now more of a recreational park / office park. And so those are the direct abutters. There's no residences which are visible or from this site, or this site isn't visible from any residences. So the proposed use is simply a continuation of the existing use, which I described. It's the sale and service of premium automobiles. The proposal here isn't going to allow them to sell more cars. It's going to allow the dealership to work more efficiently and more effectively. The addition, which is proposed, is 13,653 square feet. There's a sort of before and after rendering, which Dave has put up on the screen, just so you can see. The top photograph is the existing building, single story, 25,000 square feet. The lower image is a rendering, which shows the addition. So you can see that the addition appears to be 2 stories. It's not all 2 stories, but there is a storage mezzanine of approximately 4,500 square feet above what you see is a drive-in entrance, so that customers will no longer have to drop their vehicles off exterior to the building. It's become quite commonplace for all vehicle dealerships, or all new vehicle dealerships, to have this interior drop-off area for service, particularly these premium quality automobiles. People expect to be able to drive into the building and drop their vehicles off. So what you've got is part storage, vehicle drop-off area, and some additional service bays, because particularly with these premium vehicles, the service time lags. It's much longer than regular vehicles, just due to the fact that parts aren't available on an efficient basis. So they put cars up on the lifts, they figure out what's wrong with them, then they have to order parts, wait for delivery, and then service the cars. So there's a lot of congestion, and vehicles just taking a lot of lift time, more so than a typical dealership. So that's the proposal, the addition in a nutshell. As you can see from the site plan, Dave, if you'd pull one of our site plans up. So the proposal includes, in addition to the improvements to the building, some improvements to the parking area and circulation. We presently have approximately 114 parking spaces, and we're proposing a total of 140 with circulation around the building. As part of that process, there will be a significant overhaul of the stormwater treatment. There's little stormwater treatment on site now. There will be a robust stormwater treatment. We submitted the stormwater package to you. I think it's in excess of 600 pages, but we have also submitted that to the Conservation Commission, and we'll be working on stormwater review with the Conservation Commission. Our first meeting with the Conservation Commission.
Manny, I don't think we've seen the stormwater package.
I don't believe there was one submitted to us. I think it was just to conservation.
Okay, so I don't believe that the ZBA is in possession of the stormwater management plan.
Okay, so we had submitted, I think it was 6 copies of that 600+ page report on the Friday, which we submitted the ZBA application. There was some confusion as to whether the site plan application should be filed with the ZBA or the planning board, and the town planner was absent on that Friday. So the board of someone from the selectman's office, excuse me, accepted the application. And I suspect that somewhere around town hall, there's a stack of these large reports. But if not, if we can't locate them, we can take down a few more trees and deliver more reports. I have 3 reports in my office, so I can swing by town hall anytime and drop some additional copies off if you'd like. Mr. Chairman, it may be me, but I can't hear you.
Yeah, I just noticed the same thing. I think Josh's audio cut out.
Are lucky. All right, can you not hear? Still
You
not
know.
here?
We can hear you now.
You can. I was gonna say you guys are very lucky. Not hearing me. What I was saying is simply that Manny is going to try to locate those right now. I don't believe that it's a little immaterial at this point. We're not going to be able to get them to the other ZBA members who are remote, and certainly 600 pages is going to be a little bit tough. So coming to a final decision tonight might be a little bit tough. But I did see reference in some of the application, I believe, that maybe the site plans that have been submitted are not final, and that you are working with and perhaps we're viewing this as more of a preliminary conversation, and then we're going to go back and revise those and get back to the planning board and such. And I'd just like you to comment on that. But also, I noticed that Board of Health approval hasn't been received yet, and there's a number of other things that might be missing.
Okay, so let me try to address that, Mr. Chairman, please. We submitted what we hoped were final plans, fully designed, ZBA ready, planning board ready. But our preliminary feedback from the planning board was to address certain issues, and we said we would take that under consideration and regroup and come back to them and try to address their concerns, particularly related to the number of additional parking spaces. So again, that's something we said we would take another look at. But as far as whether our plans were final or not, they are. But we anticipated that there might be some comment, and we want to work collaboratively with the town, with the planning board, with the ZBA, with the Conservation Commission.
No, and I appreciate that, and that makes sense. I'm just trying to, gauge, how far we're going to be able to get in this process.
Sure.
Because if we are planning on going back and addressing some of those, and maybe
Can't hear you, Josh.
See if Robbie's room.
Yeah, can you see if Robbie's room? This is brutal. I apologize. You probably
Audio's out.
Some of us can hear.
Yeah, I can hear.
Josh.
Yeah, I can hear Josh too.
Just my
Might be
audio.
Adams.
I thought it was just hearing myself in my head. In my inner monologue, it's been broken. We are attempting to get IT support, and we'll be back here in 1 second.
See, it picks up, look at the corner of the screen, it says talking Wayland.
Okay,
So something is picking up the audio.
something's picking it up. Yeah,
It might be.
I hate to be that like that commercial, the Xfinity commercial, whatever it is. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. but it might be somebody else's issue with their connection, not ours.
Okay.
So let's,
Ian,
want to do a roll call and who can hear?
Yeah,
I
you
can
can-
hear you.
okay,
Joshua, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you as well.
okay.
Good
How
on my
about-
end.
And the applicants,
Yes,
we can hear you.
I can't hear anything anymore.
You can't?
Now we're back.
Can hear you, Dave.
All right.
Left my own devices, I'll break. We need to be doing something meaningful to the speaker. Does it look,
Promising.
promising? Yeah.
I think so.
All right, can everybody hear me?
8 seconds unmute. That's good.
Now it's good? Can you hear me all?
Aida can.
Yep, I can.
All good.
Yeah. Are we, picking me up? Any thoughts?
Because some people can't hear you, so it's.
I know, it's very bizarre that some people can hear me and some people can't.
What about other people, other of the applicants, because they look like they're in different
Yeah,
locations.
Mr. Crocker, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Mr. Welch?
Yes, I can hear you.
Malarkey?
likewise.
Oh, Mr. Fox, okay, yeah, thank you, Counselor. Okay, let's see if we can proceed here and muddle through this here. I think I kind of stopped your flow, Attorney Fox. But I think I understand kind of procedurally where we are at. But if we are going to be going back and addressing those, maybe it would be prudent to get an update on where we are with addressing the planning board's comments and what your intent is and whether you're going to go back with any additional proposals or revisions.
Okay, so, sure, what our goal was essentially was to elicit feedback from the planning board, elicit feedback from the zoning board, and elicit feedback from the Conservation Commission, all of which we'll have by tomorrow. Then look at all of the concerns collectively and try to address them the best we can and come back to all three boards with a revised plan set. So that was the overall goal for us.
I think that makes a lot of sense. But you know, I just wanted to make sure your expectation wasn't you were leaving with site plan approval tonight because, you know, given some of those comments, you know, and we'll work through them now. I think that would be prudent to kind of, you know, maybe start getting into the crux of the issues. But that makes a lot of sense. So you just from a procedural standpoint, you know, we're going to have a continuance at the end of the night here, most likely to address additional concerns, and additional other boards' concerns, and we'll reconvene at a later date. Does that sound fair?
Completely understood and appreciated.
Yep, understood. And just for clarification, I heard in your presentation, you were referencing an increase to 140 parking lot spaces, but on the plans, it said 144. I was just,
I'm sorry, I may have misspoke.
okay, so it's 144?
The plans are accurate, yes.
Okay, great. Now I apologize for interrupting your wonderful flow. Please tell us a little bit more about the project.
Thank you. Just getting back to the one other point that you mentioned, I'll call on Dave Newhall. Dave, Mr. Chairman had asked about the Board of Health.
Yep. I went into the Board of Health, and in person I met with Darren from Board of Health, and we went through the existing system on site, the proposed project that we were going to be presenting here tonight, and had a very good initial communication with him. And we just have some follow-up paperwork to handle with him in terms of getting him an updated letter, and he had some additional research he wanted to do, but it was an overall positive meeting in which he didn't see any issues with the existing system and with the proposed use as we presented to him in that meeting.
Joshua, are you speaking?
Yeah, we lost Josh's audio again.
Seems to be intermittent. I bet he'll be right back.
But this is extremely frustrating to
Does
me.
Robbie pass in between meetings?
We have him back now.
You come back. I was just saying, I work in the construction industry, so I'm gonna try not to speak like I usually do at this, since we are being recorded. But this is extremely frustrating to me, as it must be for you as well.
I asked if they have a backup, what's called the OWL.
Yeah, we're looking for a backup for the speaker through IT. But what I was saying is just simply, before we reschedule another date, we're gonna need the Board of Health approval in hand before we can actually finalize any decisions, just so you know that.
Understood. Shall we proceed?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So there's a history of relief on this site going back to before any of us were born, back in the 1950s. And there's been dimensional variances, and then in 1995, the use variance. I've been before this board 4 or 5 times on signage variances. So there's a history of relief on this site. But I did articulate in the narrative which I submitted the particular relief which I believe is required for this application. So I'll try to touch on some of those points very briefly. The first is the 1995 ZBA decision, which provides for the use variance for the sale of premium quality automobile, sale and service of premium quality automobiles. So that decision essentially says, if you're going to do anything to this site, you're going to have to come back to the ZBA. So the first relief which is requested is modification to that decision to authorize these changes to the site. There has also been significant setback relief granted on this site. So in the limited commercial district in town, it's a 100-foot front, side, and rear yard setback, which doesn't leave much for a building envelope. And the zoning board recognized that going back again all the way to the 1950s and has granted setback relief. So for this particular application, if we look at the front yard setback, it is presently, it's about 16 feet into the 100-foot front yard setback. So the front yard elevation is 83.9 feet from the lot line. Our 2-story or 1-story plus parts mezzanine entranceway into the vehicle service area, the proposed drive-in, is about 5 feet into that front yard setback. So it's like 95 feet from the front yard. So we're asking for relief to modify the decision, but our encroachment into that front yard setback, while new, is less than that which already exists today. On the east side yard, it's 100-foot side yard setback. We propose no changes, but the building is 62.7 feet from that side yard lot line. Again, no additional encroachment there. On the west side, there is an encroachment which wasn't there previously. On the west side, we're proposing to be approximately 30 feet into the 100 yard setback. So there's still a 70-foot buffer from the side lot line. And notably, that's less of encroachment than on the east side. Also notable is the fact that our westerly abutter is another automobile dealership, which obviously doesn't object to this project. As far as the rear yard setback goes, the present setback is 85.7 feet, and our addition encroaches slightly into that setback as well, but it will be not less than 94 feet from the rear yard lot line. So it will be a 6 foot, approximately 6 feet plus or minus encroachment. It appears, based on my reading, and I'd be happy to be corrected, that as far as lighting goes, lighting is supposed to also comply with those same 100-foot setbacks. In this case, we have existing lighting throughout the parking areas which do not comply, and we're asking for relief for our lighting plan. So we need lighting relief as well. One of the other areas of relief we're requesting is your maximum lot coverage. The zoning bylaw imposes a 20% maximum lot area coverage. We are presently just a hair below 20%, and we are going to be, based on this proposal, 26.6% lot coverage. We have attempted to minimize lot coverage, and that's why you see the parts storage area is a second story, to eliminate that 4,500 square feet as a first floor area that would impact lot coverage. But we really can't put the vehicle drive-in drop-off area on the second story or the service area on the second story. A couple of other areas of relief, quickly. The bylaw imposes a 50-yard perimeter setback for parking spaces. We are already inside that perimeter in several areas, but we're asking for additional relief to authorize what you see on the screen as a parking area. And that's one of the areas the planning board asked if we could attempt to address some of that encroachment and that asphalt. So we're going to take a good look at that after meeting with you, after meeting with the planning board. A couple of other small ones, and we need a special permit for work within the floodplain. Dave can articulate where and what we're doing within that floodplain. It's a relatively small area. And then the zoning bylaw requires special permits for any soil movement. We haven't done a detailed analysis, but I suspect in this project there will be some soil movement which will require relief. The last area of relief we're requesting is a waiver of a traffic impact report. This is obviously Boston Post Road, which is very, very busy thoroughfare. We don't believe there's any material increase to the traffic created by additional service bays, storage area, and the drive-in area. So we're asking to, if you would accept or provide us a waiver of the traffic impact report. Again, I articulated this in much further detail in the narrative, which I submitted, but we think that there isn't a material detrimental impact to the town or to the neighborhood as a result of these proposed improvements. And we're going to have a better project here with a better customer experience and improved working conditions for our employees. So if I may, I would like to turn the floor over to Dave, who can walk you through the site in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, and before we get going there, can you hear me, Dave?
Yep.
He's going to switch out the owl, the mechanism by which we are talking, and hopefully that will improve the speaker quality. So let's just give us 1 second while we do a technical switch of the speaker microphone.
Okay, no problem.
Can you guys hear me?
Thank you for your patience.
Yes. Okay, good.
This is.
I'm guessing it's sounds like,
No, this isn't the smoothest.
it kind of sounds like on there almost like, because it's
Well,
like,
some people are hearing, some people aren't.
yeah.
It is, it is,
Because he said he used this last night.
The last night we're seeing no problems at all.
okay.
We'll just give this a swap and that's all we can do.
I could just try to open up my mic here on my,
I was thinking of doing it based off of just doing the microphone
From the computer.
from the computer.
should I
Then
do
they
that?
wouldn't
Should I
be able
do
to-
that off of mine so we can pick it up? Or,
And then he would just see you. Camera. Will be your computer camera, you're saying?
well, my computer microphone, I mean, he can see me on the computer video, I've got video on, but
Yeah.
right now it's just a video because I didn't want to interfere with the mic and get feedback. What do you think the technical solution should be?
Let's see how this new one does.
That really
I didn't hear that.
He does all the time and turn these on.
It would be,
Like an hour.
that's fun,
It's- Bill, ladies.
You back up? You back up?
One second.
All right.
Alright.
You good? All right, let's take two here. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Wonderful.
All good.
Yes.
Very much. Well,
Yep. So for the record, David Newhall with Crocker Design Group. I know you guys have been anticipating my presentation now. Got delayed a little bit, so hopefully it's as exciting as I think it is. Just to take us back a second to the existing conditions plan, we have Boston Post Road on the bottom of the screen and the bottom of the plan. We have an existing curb cut off of Boston Post Road that is used to access the site today. We have a small area here for parking. Drop off coming in. We have some parking along the side here and then more parking in the rear of the building. We have our existing building here that Josh had mentioned, about 25,000 square feet. In the rear of the property, we have a bordering vegetated wetland that was flagged and delineated and field located. Also in the back, we do have the FEMA floodplain that is the elevation 121 that is in the rear of the property. And then we also have natural heritage in the back as well. We've submitted to the Conservation Commission. We have our meeting with them tomorrow night. We've submitted our application that we sent to the Conservation Commission, also to DEP. We have not received any comment to date from them yet. And then we've also received comment from Natural Heritage on our project, and they'll have no further comment. They do not have any jurisdiction on our project. They said all of our work is outside of any protected habitat. So on site as well today, we have this parking area, we have the building. There is no drainage infrastructure today. The water flows in a general direction to the south, which is the top of the screen, to this bordering vegetated wetland in the rear of the property. So the proposed project, to get into more of our stormwater analysis and improvements, you can see up on the screen now, we've proposed 5 catch basins along the front of the building. These first catch basins 1 and 2, they capture water from this high point on the side of the building here, and from this high point where we have this crosswalk for the 2 handicap spaces. So this captures all water here to these 2 catch basins. It conveys to a CDS unit, which we have labeled as CDS1, which is a water quality unit. So this will treat the stormwater, get rid of the TSS within the stormwater, and then convey that to what we are calling UG1, which is an underground detention system. This contains 1 row of 10 concrete retainment chambers. So this detains and slows down the stormwater before heading to this outlet control structure and then tying in here at DMH2. This drainage manhole also takes water from catch basins 3, 4, and 5, which takes stormwater from this high point here and coming in right around this area here where the water starts to split coming into this catch basin. So these 3 catch basins take that stormwater. It then conveys, ties in with the water being detained here, flows down to this area where we have a diversion manhole here, which then sends our stormwater to another water quality unit. We have called this CDS number 2. So this treats all of the stormwater that goes to these 5 catch basins and then also this double catch basin here. This has also a diversion manhole, so the low flow, water quality, storm events all go through our treatment train here to get treated for water quality and TSS removal before heading to our UG2, which is an infiltration system. This is 3 rows of 12 concrete retainment chambers. They are 2 feet in height, and it recharges the half-inch, 1-inch, and 1-year storm events. So all rainwater from those storm events that go to these 6 different catch basins all get infiltrated using this UG2 system. In the larger storm events, we have an overflow that then overflows this 4-foot weir to a riprap splash pad in the rear of the property. So this riprap splash pad helps to prevent any scour or any potential erosion from the stormwater system. The back of the parking area, so from this high point to the rear of the building to the south, from this high point over, all of this water is directed by gravity to this sediment forebay to the southwest. I always get backwards because north's down. So it goes to this sediment forebay to treat the stormwater. Then this fills up, overflows into our infiltration basin number 2. We also have this high point over to this high point, collects all of our stormwater here, goes through an inlet to a water quality swale that fills up into our proposed sediment forebay number 2. This fills up, spills over into our infiltration basin. This recharges the half-inch and 1-inch storms. In the larger storms, we have an overflow that then ties into this oversized riprap splash pad. The last portion of the proposed parking area is treated with this infiltration basin number 1. So we have a high point here. This water flows by gravity to an opening in the curbing here into a grass swale, into our sediment forebay, and into our infiltration basin. We also have a high point here that collects this rainwater that goes through the same swale, forebay, and infiltration basin with an overflow riprap spillway on the south side of that basin. The proposed building here in the darker gray, and then also in the lighter gray, the existing building, all of the stormwater for the roof is directed to a roof drain system that comes out on the south side of the building here and here into another subsurface infiltration system. This is a retainment system as well that recharges the half-inch and 1-inch storm and has an overflow that goes to this riprap splash pad as well. So opposed to the existing condition where there's no stormwater treatment, we have all of our impervious surfaces, all of our stormwater going through, being treated as part of this proposal to make this really a robust stormwater treatment system. That's more of a brief rundown of it compared to the overall report, as Josh had mentioned, is quite extensive. All of the stormwater events for Mass DEP, for Wayland Conservation, Wayland bylaws, in which we have to treat stormwater from a volume and from a rate standpoint. Everything in our post-development conditions with this stormwater system, our rates are all slower. Our overall volume of water is less because we're infiltrating water now. We're treating it with detention and infiltration systems and slowing down our water as it goes through the site. And it's all being treated before heading to the wetlands in the rear of the property, which are very important to protect, opposed to the existing site, which has been around for a long period of time now.
Dave, a quick question.
Yes.
So the septic and leaching field is on the east-south side still?
Yeah, so our septic system is this grayed out area here that's on the east side of the building, which is over 50 feet from any of our subsurface and at surface infiltration systems.
And you're going to be driving over that, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's... yeah. Usually you don't see that.
It depends. On certain systems, you don't see it. In other instances, we do have the septic underneath the pavement. We have it next door at the JLR dealership underneath the parking area as well.
Okay.
Everything can be site, and septic becomes very site specific on that.
I have a question on that. That's an existing system, correct?
Yep.
So is that is that system rated for drive over access? Because I believe the existing conditions plan does not have any pavement on that side.
The existing conditions plan doesn't have any pavement on it. No, that's a grassed area where there is vehicles are parked over it. It is functioning. It is a stone and pipe system that is rated for the vehicle loads. When you have the stone, it helps take the pressure off of the trenches in which the water is leaching through.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Newhall. Any further there, or you guys ready for some questions?
We were prepared to continue to touch on the landscaping plan as well, but if you want to flush out some of the questions now, we're happy to do that as well.
I'd be happy to hear the landscaping plan and how that's going to change. Let's just keep it tight.
Okay. So we're proposing some added impervious area, some added pavement up in the front area here. So we are losing some green space and some tree plantings. So we have proposed to add to the street landscaping along Boston Post Road. There's several trees along Boston Post Road, so we're looking to add 3 trees along Boston Post Road to keep that continuous flow of the trees, and then also add a lot of low shrubs and low plantings that thrive with being the undergrowth and fill in underneath, as well as the trees that have the larger canopy. We also propose some landscaping to match the existing planting that is seen at JLR here to mirror that on this side of the entrance for the property. We've had Lodeman seed landscaped along the parking, along the side of the building here, and along the rear of the building. There's also some proposed plantings here that don't have large root growth that will not interfere with the existing septic system and its future capacity by having the roots grow into it. So we propose some lower landscaping as well. We also, on the inside of this retaining wall, we have a more of an ornamental type of grass as a planting that's, it would be difficult to maintain any actual lawn in here. So it's something that is maintenance free and does have a nice appearance to it as well. And then we also have our infiltration basins are going to get planted with a meadow mix, with a seed mix that works with the infiltration system to not interfere with how that treats water and is able to be maintained.
On those retaining walls, how much of a cut is that?
The cut on the retaining wall, so the existing wall here, it's about at most a 7-foot cut here. And then as you move along Boston Post Road in a westerly direction, it gets less of a cut. And then also as we move towards the south. So at most is a 7-foot cut.
What are you proposing for?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Just as far as how you're gonna accomplish the retaining wall, what kind of retaining wall are you putting in?
We have that right now as a block retaining wall, as a large block that can be installed. We usually have that as a design build component. Right now we're projecting it to be a large block as part of the design.
Great. I don't know if you have further presentation to make or.
That touches on everything that we had prepared for tonight, unless Josh, you had anything you wanted to add?
No, I think that concludes our general presentation.
Wonderful. I had a quick question because, I did pull the prior decision 95-16, and I was working down through and looking at the conditions put onto that variance, the use variance there. Certainly it's limited to the type of, I don't think the type of use is different that you're looking to do with the general automotive, but I get down to there's no proposed changes to hours of operations. We're looking to operate in the same manner pursuant to the same condition that we had under the 95 variance. Is that correct?
We should really take a look at that. I'll ask John Welch. I've got the hours of operation as approved back in 1995, and we'd like to confirm, John, whether or not we can continue with those hours. I think it's 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday, and noon to 5 on Sunday.
Yeah, that's currently accurate.
Okay. And I just want to be, just make sure that all the conditions, I want to be very specific on what conditions we're actually looking to potentially change. One of the pieces that concerned me a little bit, and I think the planning board was picking up on this, was actually condition 6, which reference all landscaping shall be maintained and the amount of open space on the site shall not be reduced. And I think that, and I think the planning board in their advisory memo to us, they were picking up on that. And I think they had, said that the proposed site plan does not meet the intent of some of the standards and criteria established in section 198-606 of the zoning bylaws, specifically maximizing retention of open space and minimizing vegetation removal. The board noted the almost complete coverage of the lot with the building and greatly expanded asphalt parking areas. Also, it appeared from the plans that the existing vegetated buffer along Boston Post Road was planned for removal. And I was just looking at that, is there any thought about, and on those parking spaces, do we need that much parking going from 119 to 144? And one of the questions I had was, and I believe the dealership next door has some common ownership, is that correct? But are we sharing spaces between the two dealerships? Are you anticipating that the dealership next door might be parking cars down there? And is there an ability to shift parking spaces to that property to mitigate some of the open space concerns? I'm just curious what the thought process was.
So operationally, the Jaguar Land Rover dealership is autonomous. Their vehicles, other than maybe in the most extenuating circumstances, are not on this particular site. I think occasionally some of the vehicles from this site may be stored on that site, and they might coordinate vehicle deliveries on one site versus the other, whichever is more efficient and safe, so that we make sure that the car carriers aren't on Boston Post Road. But there's not a lot of parking sharing. It's certainly something we can try to take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, I think in large part that was, the planning board's first and presumably biggest comment, right? And I read it in the variance that was provided back in 1995 as something very specific, that we shall not reduce the amount of open space, right? And so, and I do look at the zoning bylaws, before I came in tonight, I took a little bit of a spin through the standards and criteria under 606. And, it does talking about the maximization of retention of open space. And so I think, I'd be very curious on that, the response, and just, you guys may be looking at that a little, sharpening the pencils a little bit more and seeing, what might be feasible, because if there is, if there's common ownership, there's going to be some sharing of space at some points. And I think you recognize that too, however minimal it might be, but is there an opportunity to maybe shift some of the impacts from, I get it, this site is very tight. It's a unique site. I don't disagree with the prior variance decisions here, which you definitely pointed out in your, in your paperwork here. It's a tough site, and you're up against, some constraints. And I don't know if there's an opportunity just, for addressing some of those open space concerns, because with more pavement, just more impervious surface. Certainly there's wonderful upgrades to the stormwater plan, certainly just there's a knee-jerk reaction here, but would love to see if we can sharpen our pencils on the open space issues. Okay. And of course, I don't need a response now. Just let us know as we reschedule this and we come back. I assume you're going to spend some time addressing the planning board's concerns and maybe proposing something different or not. But let's talk about that. But digging into the planning board's concerns here, I think their first 2 points are kind of what I just hit upon. Well, let's talk about lighting for a second here. As far as complying with the dark sky requirements, that sounds like it's more of just the design of the lighting, maybe than perhaps the location of the lighting. And can you speak to that, as far as addressing dark sky concerns?
Absolutely. And this is Dave Newhall from Crocker Design Group. The lighting to be dark sky compliance is the technology of the lighting itself, the type of light that is used in the lights, the LED lighting, and the luminaire of the lights. So the proposal has a light that meets that dark sky compliance and the specifications that go with that to be in compliance with dark sky.
I mean, just, and I'm not speaking for the rest of the board here, but, from my perspective, we have to keep a parking lot safe, and, and you do have some pretty tight constraints here, that you're going to need relief on in order to do so. So I'm not unsympathetic to the location issue of where you're placing the lighting, but we're very keenly interested in that design, and making sure that, we're doing our part to keep the skies dark.
Yep, and these lights they meet the requirement. we use LSI. It's pretty standard across the board when we go in front of any board to have that dark sky compliance. So we have all of the lighting to be dark sky compliant, and then also when this facility isn't operational, these light levels are all programmed to even come down too. In addition to, it's not going to be fully lit 24/7. Not during operation. It's just a security level lighting to make sure that it's staying within all of those guidelines.
Okay, wonderful. I also had a question just about the waiver of the traffic impact report, that relief you're requesting there. Isn't the purpose of a traffic impact report to determine whether it is de minimis increases to the traffic? Granted, I understand what you're saying from a practical pig standpoint, that it's Boston Post Road, but aren't you underpinning your logic for the waiver with the actual purpose of the report itself?
So your point is well taken, Mr. Chairman. Our thought was just that if there is such a minimal impact, and we think we demonstrated that it's a minimal impact, given the fact that the great majority of our building improvements are related to just having a interior drop-off in part storage area, that it was fairly easy to determine that there is no material impact in the traffic. And so that was the basis for our ask. I lost audio.
Yeah, I don't have audio either.
That's my best oratory. Am I back yet?
Yep,
Yes.
I
Yes.
have you. I don't have them anymore.
Oh my gosh.
We had a good streak for a while.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Give you a hard time with that logic, because I just, I wanted to, it might be obvious. It might be obvious. I'm not unsympathetic to your request there for a waiver, but it just seemed like a funny logic question when you're underpinning the logic of that request with actually the purpose of the report itself. But putting that aside, I'm not sure that I am sympathetic to that request. So those are some of the obvious questions I immediately had. I don't know if other members of the board had any additional question that they wanted to ask you. Don't jump all at once.
Can you see this?
I can. Okay. I don't see anybody raising their hand.
Yeah, you asked similar questions, Josh, that I was going to ask relative to the planning board comments. I too am sympathetic for the traffic waiver request. I would tend to agree that it on the face of it, the application for what the use for what you're proposing for the added square footage does imply that there is not going to be an increase in traffic. But I'm wondering if there's something sort of short of a traffic study, but perhaps something that maybe some more robust language in section G of the narrative that could perhaps support that argument.
I think we can accommodate that.
Yeah, we don't have an issue of putting together a letter that outlines based off the different trip generation manuals that are current, that basis of a full traffic study would be based off of. We can look at those and put together a professional letter stating and giving more technical background to that waiver request.
Well, I think that's an excellent point and a really great request that is. And I appreciate you guys being willing to provide something. any decision that we make needs to be supported. For certain. Any other comments, concerns?
Not for me.
You hit on my additional pieces, so get me to it.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, again, it's some of that, what gives me consternation a little bit, and gives me pause is just some of that open space piece, and it'd be very interested to see whether there's, any accommodation that can be provided there, and look forward to seeing, what you might come up with on that. With that said, I don't know if it.
So the next steps that you explained earlier is that they are going to speak or appear before the Conservation Commission and receive some feedback from other boards.
Well, I think there's a number of things that need to occur here. I think they've made the commitment to consider and respond to the planning board, which I think is information that certainly we would need to see if they are changing plans and changing their proposal here, because those plans and those changes would have to be before us as we go through the process. I do think that, obviously we need Board of Health approval. The Concom discussion is going to, I understand if I heard correctly earlier, you get some feedback from for Concom. I did see in the planning board memo relative to their request to the Conservation Commission taking lingering or as it relates to a peer review of the site stormwater management plan. Will we have feedback in writing how that goes and further feedback? I would expect we would. We are going to be getting. They don't usually miss enough to provide.
Hey, Josh. Josh, you guys are pretty muffled.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we got you now.
Yep.
Mr. Levine was just asking about some of the procedural steps that we're up against, and we probably are looking down the barrel at. And what comes to my mind is planning board addressing that. We're likely to get more feedback from the planning board, for which we can use in our next hearing on this. Certainly, Board of Health approval is something we'll need in hand before we're able to render any decision. And then Conservation Commission feedback, who I do note that the planning board did request that they take the laboring order to do a peer review or some sort of study on the stormwater plan for the site, which I would be looking for feedback, relative to that from either the planning board or the Conservation Commission. So I think there's a little bit more work to do. I think, I don't know if the applicant has any questions about anything you've heard or feedback you've heard from us. But I think you understand maybe what some of our primary concerns might be.
Yes, so I think I have but one question, if I may.
Of course.
And maybe I missed it. Manny, did you find those stormwater reports?
No, they might be located in the front office and it's locked right now.
Okay, but if not, let us know. We'll submit hard copies. We can also submit to the ZBA email a PDF of it, if you'd like.
That'd be wonderful. If you could forward a PDF.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
PDF would be great. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do that regardless. That was my only question. I think we understand all of your comments. It seems relatively consistent with the planning board, and we anticipated peer review with the Concom, and we'll submit any, peer review correspondence that we have through the Concom to the ZBA as well, and keep you apprised, although I'm sure the conservation agent would do that. But I think we understand and appreciate your comments.
Wonderful. I appreciate that. I do think, since we've been here at this hearing, we'd be remiss in not opening up for public comment if anybody wanted to speak for or against. I'm not sure we have any attendees, here on the participant list. but I'll just on the record, just open it up. We have nobody here at the town building with us. And there does not appear to be anybody online either. So we've given that opportunity for public, comment. And twice now. Yep. So wonderful. But barring that, I think the other piece of business we might have is to, continue this to a date certain. And I think that's our obligation is to, do that and vote on that for the record. Counselor, how much time do you anticipate needing? Do you think that this could be put on for the second Tuesday of March? Or is this something that you're really looking to maybe have a little additional time to work through some of these issues? We could always put it on for March, understanding that we might need to move it. But sometimes, a month is not all that long of a period of time.
We understand. We'd like to be on the docket for March, but and we could get plan revisions in, but we're not going to have peer review comments. I don't think from Concom, from their peer reviewer by then. So we can be cautiously optimistic and target March, but we understand that there's a possibility that we would continue without addressing everything, or possibly give a brief presentation on the progress that we've made, whatever makes sense at the time.
Josh, we can't hear you now.
We lost you again.
Mr. Fox, would you be open to, instead of March, just push to April then, to give yourself plenty of time? I was hate for you to come and then give presentation stuff and then have to push again. So.
I think what we'd like to do is continue to March, and then if we see that we haven't made any progress, we won't come before you. We'll just ask for a continuance, if that's okay.
That's absolutely fine. Can you hear me now?
Totally fine.
Yep. Okay, if you guys can hear me, that's absolutely fine. We're gonna for the fifth matter, 7:45. So March 14th, 7:45 will be the continued date, and we just need to do this by roll call vote here of the board. And I suppose I don't think we need a motion. I think we just vote on it. Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Was that me? I couldn't hear it. Aye.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Myself, the chair, Joshua Warren, aye. The guys have it, and didn't miss anybody, did I? No.
Tom.
Oh, Miss, I know.
I vote aye.
Right. Good. I think we're all set then. I really appreciate the time. I really appreciate the package as well. It was a detailed submittal, and that makes these processes so much easier. Looking forward to hearing the progress that you guys make, and looking forward to talking to you some more.
Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you. Have a great
Thank
night.
you for your time.
Right.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Our hearts on that tie, Joe?
Yeah, it's red.
Does anybody have a motion?
Move to close the meeting.
Second.
Credit that to Mr. Levine. He started speaking first, although we are fast speaking, Mr. Hirsch. Ms. Jennings, thank you very much for seconding. We'll take this by roll call vote. Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Hirsch?
Aye.
White?
Aye.
We're the chair. Aye. The ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.